Hi guys, well, so I finished building the machine, but I run into problems. So, for one, okay, so this is a socket AM3 motherboard, and almost all of them, they say that you cannot use more than 16 gigs of RAM. You cannot use 32. People say, oh, because 8 gigabyte RAM modules did not exist back then, so they couldn't. Well, I had an ECS motherboard back then, and it claimed it supported 32 gigs, but I never went that far. I never even upgraded past. I had 2 gigabytes because of WAN XP. It was a dream machine, all right. Only cool and quiet was not working. Everything else worked like a dream it did. Well, so this is what the motherboard I put in looks like. Some old Foxconn A88GMX, but so that we're like testing it. I don't know, Linux isn't really a good choice for testing because it can be unstable, but we never had any of our systems like just simply freeze after just sitting there inactive. The keyboard, the mouse freezing, and what was other problems? We were trying to navigate and it was sluggish. Things didn't work when you clicked on them. Was that right?
No.
So I'm thinking bad motherboard. It could be possibly because of the memory, but I read bad things about this motherboard. Well, I mean, when I bought it, okay, the Newegg page was old and unmaintained for it. I tried loading it, but it just didn't load really. So I was thinking, oh, I'll just bite the bullet and get it off eBay, brand new, sealed, whatever motherboard. But then I found out that you gotta wait like 5 minutes for the page to load on Newegg, because there's just something wrong with that page because it's not maintained. So it said people complained about the North Bridge overheating and killing the motherboard. Well, I noticed that by default you don't even have overheat protection, so the thing overheats, it just dies. And people complain about it taking other computer parts with it. Well, I did install this. I'll take it apart with you to show. Well, it's pretty to look at though. We might even just display it, or I don't know, thrift store it. Yeah, because these are my favorite motherboards of all time in terms of looks. I absolutely love how they have nice bright colors and everything. So, yeah, well, so the North Bridge, you can see it is right here. But I cleverly put a system blower, and it made my temperatures like only 58 to like 63 or so degrees. It started like 66. It started at 63, but actually cooled down after a while. This is an old-fashioned like exhaust out of cases back in the 90s that had poor airflow. So I ran a line that's actually normal Northbridge temperatures, but the CPU was about the same. We had problems with like late 30s or basically in the 40s. I was actually late 30s now that I put this exhaust cooler, but so better temperatures than we had in the other motherboard. The other motherboard that was healthy in here, but we didn't want to use it because it's vulnerable to the Wi-Fi logo fail. On those old motherboards that have no patch, except newer motherboards have patches of BIOS updates, but not old ones from like 2012. So we put an AM3 motherboard because they don't have Wi-Fi BIOS, so I feel safe that way, so. So they're saying so. Who knows? It might just be I have too large main models. Maybe just I don't know. Just a flaky brand, flaky motherboard. So, well, on the good news, buddy says, well, seeing we have faster machines now. I built this machine a couple of years ago for him. He was upgrading from just liking laptops to discovering the possibilities of a desktop, just being so much more customizable and just fun to work on, not some difficult laptop, whatever. So this is we took it out of a compact. It's a AM2 board. Came with an Athon 64X2, and in my experience, Linux Mint. Just simply a dual-core processor and 4 gigs of RAM is enough. And he doesn't really care as long as it works fine enough for internet, which I know for a fact it won't will. I mean, I'm running a dual-core. Like basically, it's a AMD Turion 2 with 4 gigs of RAM. 4 gigabytes of RAM at home with Linux Mint, and yeah, it runs nicely. And well, such a CPU, the Athon 64X2 is fast enough for XP or Linux, but not really Windows 7 gamer. It's more of XP era gamer. But we can use it for practical, functional software though. Find a use. I think likely maybe able to still do Blu-ray MDisk burns. I imagine. I've been looking at specifications for Blu-ray drives, and they would say like they need a dual-core processor. So Blu-ray MDisk. So yeah, it should be fine probably for our goals as a backup machine. So say the Phantom 1 breaks out, so we'll have this one. The AMT board's a good motherboard. The only thing wrong that I see is a bad PS2 port for like a keyboard and mouse. Yeah, and I think it has built-in graphics, so you don't need this card anymore. And plus, I don't even think the CPU is fast enough. You know, I mean, it's like having a Pentium 133 with the GeForce 4 from the early 2000s. You know, like a classic 90s Pentium. I mean, like the, you know, the when they were like Windows 95. Hold on one second. This little, how is that? How is that raised up? Well, I guess I gotta make a part 2 video then. Hold on, and then stay tuned.